Well, it's good to be back, at both Pandora and the theater for an exciting blockbuster. Avatar: The Way of Water is the first of four long-awaited sequels to James Cameron's groundbreaking film from 2009. Jake Sully, played again by Sam Worthington, has taken permanent possession of his Na'vi avatar, making his home on Pandora and starting a family with Neytiri. After over a decade, the Resources Development Administration has returned to Pandora to continue their destructive expeditions and rapidly build human colonization there. The Na'vi seek refuge with a semi-aquatic variant of their species on the moon's eastern seaboard, where they learn their ways and develop bonds with the ocean's intelligent whale-like creatures called Tolkun. But another war is impending when the RDA begin hunting the Tolkuns, seeking out a valuable substance in their brains. When I first went to see Avatar with my dad 13 years ago, I had been enthralled by all the hype. I felt like I was on my way to seeing a modern Star Wars, like a revolutionary, once-in-a-generation landmark in filmmaking. And while I wouldn't quite put it on the same level as the original Star Wars trilogy, it still blew my mind. It's been a long time coming for the first of all the sequels that James Cameron has planned. I've been waiting to return to this world for over a decade of delay after delay. Heck, I remember when Avatar 2 was scheduled for 2014. And at last, there I was in the theater witnessing it. I tell you too, after I got pretty burned out by the monumental disappointment that was Jurassic World Dominion, this was the first time in a while that I got that euphoric feeling I used to get when sitting down in a crowded theater ready to see a big blockbuster. So, was it all worth the wait? Well, let me start with the obvious. Avatar: The Way of Water, with a budget of over $350 million, is another visual tour de force, just like the original. In fact, it honestly exceeded my expectations in that regard, because for all these years, I just assumed it would contain a lot of the same artistic visuals that the first movie had ingrained into our heads. But oh no, this movie takes us to another region of Pandora with lots more various environments, and therefore, a whole new experience. And the IMAX 3D presentation, oh my goodness, it is an absolute must when you go see the movie. While I don't know this for a fact, someone told me less than a week before the movie's release that James Cameron hadn't yet finished converting the movie to 2D. If it's true, then that really goes to show you that the IMAX 3D presentation is the way it's meant to be seen. I can't remember the last movie I saw where the 3D was truly worth it, but here, to say that it enhances the experience would be putting it lightly. It makes the action incredibly immersive, especially in the case of the climactic battle sequence, which, needless to say, when it's a James Cameron movie that involves the ocean, contains a shipwreck. A really well-done shipwreck scene that's filled with claustrophobic moments. And whenever the movie would take us into the ocean, it put me in this topsy-turvy where I was simultaneously conscious of being in the movie theater and feeling like I was really submerged into the water with microplastics floating around my face. The score composer for this movie is Simon Franklin, who worked elsewhere in the music department for the first movie, and he does a truly worthy job filling the shoes of the late great James Horner. We get some reuses of the ICU theme, as well as some new pieces that have a lavish oceanic vibe, mixed in with that same beautiful tribal sound that was so prevalent in the original soundtrack. So everything you expect to be amazing, the effects, the cinematography, the 3D, the sound, the music, is indeed all amazing, occasionally even in ways that you don't expect. However, something that I expected not in the sense that it was a given, but in the sense that it was needed in order to win me over completely, was for it to set a higher standard in terms of the writing. I was forgiving toward the original's formulaic story that was basically Dances with Wolves, because it made up for with just the spirit-raising simplicity of this broken man finding new life in this wondrous, dreamlike world. But if it's going to carry on for 4 more movies, it's going to need to be anchored by a more layered story. For most of the movie, it's pretty straightforward, with only 1 or 2 character elements that kept me engaged. But honestly, I think what's the real detriment to the story is the movie's runtime. It goes on for a whopping 3 hours and 15 minutes, a whole half hour longer than the original movie, and darn it all, it really does not need to be. The 2-hour 45-minute runtime of the first movie was perfect. It allowed enough time for us to take in the grandiosity of this world and to feel the exhilaration of this new life Jake is experiencing, while still consistently keeping the story going. This is much less so in The Way of Water. There are just so many extended sequences of Jake's clan learning the ways of the Water Clan, forming bonds with the Tolkuns, getting attacked by dangerous giant fishes, and getting saved by the Tolkuns, because as we know,
there's always a bigger fish.
While undeniably awe-inspiring, these scenes go on for so long that at a point, I kind of drift out of the experience a bit, and I'm thinking, okay, can we move the story along now, please? There's also a section of these scenes where it keeps cutting to a group of enemy figures trying to take control of their own mountain banshees. It switches back and forth between these scenes a few times, when it would have made more logical sense to just keep it to one sequence at a time. The one part of this movie that was intriguing from start to finish is this new character named Kiri, Jake's adopted daughter who was birthed from Grace Augustine's avatar. She and her foster siblings wonder who her father was, or if she even had a father, and she apparently has a stronger connection with Awa than the rest of the Na'vi. She's able to breathe underwater longer than the rest of them. And there's this underwater spirit tree that allows the Na'vi to meet with those whose souls have become one with Awa. When Kiri links her neural tendrils with the tree, she meets with Grace Augustine, but that link with her breaks when she suddenly goes into an epileptic shock. So there's something mysterious going on with her. I have a theory, and I base it on the spirituality that was introduced in the first movie. It was an interesting version of pantheism merged with some tenets of Christianity. There was a very clear born-again allegory, and Awa is sort of an inverse pronunciation of Yahweh. Now, considering the fact that Kiri is played by Sigourney Weaver as Grace is, I'm betting on there having been no father, that it was a virgin birth. I think she's being built up to be something of a messiah figure, like Awa's only begotten daughter or something. And that's what I'm getting from that. Let's just hope that this presumable story of a child immaculately conceived is planned a heck of a lot better than you-know-who, if you followed me these last 6 months. There's another subplot involving a new human character named Spider, the son of Colonel Quaritch. He was born on Pandora, and was unable to return to Earth because he was too young for cryostasis. He doesn't have an avatar, but he feels more like one of the Na'vi than a human, having grown up alongside Jake's kids. Now, Quaritch actually comes back in this movie, kind of. We find out that he had his memories saved before going into battle at the end of the first movie, so that in the event of his death, he would have those memories implanted into an avatar of his own. The RDA capture Quaritch's son, and naturally he wants to get him on his side, and for the most part it's played pretty standard, up until the final act, when some rather surprising things happen between these two characters that reveal some humanity within Quaritch. And despite how long it took to get there, it did grab my attention and leaves a lot of potential open for the future. This came as a pleasant surprise because I know I saw reports saying that each of the 4 Avatar sequels were going to have their own definitive conclusion, that there wouldn't be any cliffhangers. This somewhat disappointed me, as I expected some storytelling that wasn't as episodic as that, after years of planning on James Cameron's part for 4 giant movies being filmed back to back. But from the end of this first sequel, that report seems to have been shot down entirely. There are several character threads yet to be resolved, including Quaritch and his son, as well as Kiri finding out the truth of her origin. So I am now invested in the big picture story that it appears will be running through all these movies. The one downside of it all is that it just wasn't until the last half hour of this movie that I felt like the story was really getting going. When all's said and done, Avatar: The Way of Water was worth the wait. It unfortunately suffers from excessive length, but is another utterly captivating visual masterpiece with a few solid characterizations in there that have me interested in seeing where it all goes next. And absolutely, see it in IMAX 3D. Just be sure you got some time to kill. The first Avatar I give an 85%, And scoring on the Factor Facts, Avatar The Way of Water, I give a 75%. You know, just a funny story. My brother, who's deployed in Okinawa, often calls me up to tell me about his humorous experiences at the theater, being jam-packed in the auditorium with 500 of his fellow belligerent Marines. In Avatar 2, the mercenaries of the RDA hunting the Tolkuns are ex-Marines, so when my brother went to see the movie, the theater was basically a stadium full of fans rooting for the bad guys. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this review helpful. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.